Ever get that, like, I don't know, that feeling where you kind of buy something and you don't even think about it, like a pen or something at the checkout? Well, you've given us like a ton of stuff on consumerism to go through, and it turns out buying that pen, it's a much bigger deal than it seems.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how much there is to say about just buying one thing. It's not just the pen, it's the whole system that, you know, got it to you.
We've got parts of textbooks and notes you've written, even a whole YouTube video breaking down ads.
Yeah.
Looks like you want to get into like all the parts of consumerism, huh?
The really cool part is how connected consumerism is with the economy. Like one of these sources, it actually says that consumerism is an economic theory. Like it connects what people spend to how healthy the economy
And
is.
so every time we buy something, we're like part of a big economic experiment.
Exactly. And the textbook, it uses the whole pen thing as an example. It shows like all the steps that happen, starting with you buying the pen and then, how it affects other things.
Okay, walk me through it. I want to know where this pen goes.
Just think about everyone it took to, get that pen made and to get it into your hand, like factory workers, truck drivers, people who stock the shelves. But it goes even deeper than that.
Deeper.
Yeah, like someone had to mine the stuff to make the pens, someone designed the packaging and the ads for it, right? The textbook said maybe hundreds, maybe even thousands of people have something to do with making just one pen.
Whoa, I never thought of it like that. That's like way more important now than it was a minute ago.
And that's just one pen. Now think about like every single thing anyone buys every day. That's how much stuff happens in the economy just from people buying things. The more people buy, the more jobs there are, the more stuff companies make, and the economy grows.
So you're saying me buying a pack of gum is like helping the economy?
Exactly. It's a cycle.
Right.
We spend money, companies grow, people get jobs, and then they spend money, and it just keeps going. And governments can try to change things with like taxes and regulations too.
Right, right. But it can't just be about, the money side of things. There's that YouTube video you gave me, the one that like looks at ads.
Right. It's not just about what we buy, it's why we buy it. Marketing, like ads and stuff, are super important for making us want things and picking what we buy.
Oh yeah, I've definitely fallen for some jingles before, haha.
The video talks about six ways marketers, get us to buy stuff. Things like having famous people endorse stuff or making it seem like, something's going to run out to make people want it more.
It's like they've got like this whole secret plan to get our money, huh?
And it works. Like the video talks about those going out of business sales. They make it seem like you have to buy stuff right now, and people end up buying things they don't need at all.
Oh, I totally know what you mean. I've definitely gotten things I didn't need just because they were on sale, like a big sale.
But even past the ads, the stuff we buy, it's like it says something about us.
Yeah.
The textbook talks to students about what clothes they buy. And it's interesting how different people, like, think about it.
So like what you buy is a way of showing who you are.
Exactly. Some students said they buy brand names so they fit in. Others look for like unique stuff to stand out. And then there were some that wanted their clothes to be sustainable and ethical, even if it cost more.
That's interesting. So your clothes are like a statement about what you believe in.
Yeah. And it's not just clothes. It's like anything you buy. Do you buy local stuff? Organic food? Those choices, show what's important to you and what you want to support.
You know what? I've never really thought about it that way, but that makes sense. Like, I really like supporting small businesses, so I always try to get coffee at local places or buy books at bookstores that aren't chains.
It's so interesting how much meaning there is in the stuff we do every day. But consumerism isn't all about how we like show who we are. There's also the question of what it does for, all of us in terms of health and safety and stuff.
Yeah, the textbook talked about like how the government tries to protect people, like those warnings on cigarette packs.
Exactly. That's how governments like try to get people to make healthier choices.
But there's always the argument about whether people should be able to choose for themselves or whether the government should step in. The textbook talked about maybe banning junk food in schools. Some parents liked the idea, but others thought it was going too far.
Yeah, it's hard to know what the right answer is. Where do we draw the line between what we can choose to do and what we like to do for the good of everyone? And when you're talking about safety, it's not just about you, it's about how your choices affect others too.
You know what? This is making me think about the safety features on my car. I drive a Jeep, and it has like airbags and that thing that warns you if you're drifting out of your lane. It makes me feel safe, but it also makes me think about how that stuff could, protect other people on the road too.
That's a really good point. It shows that our choices can, like, do things we don't even think about, good and bad, for everyone.
So it's not just about what we buy for ourselves. It's about how it affects everything around us, too.
Right. And speaking of effects, we can't forget about how consumerism, affects the environment. Let's go back to the pen thing for a minute.
Back to the pen. Okay, what's the environmental part of this?
Well, the textbook talks about how even a pen needs, raw materials and then factories that use energy and packaging that usually just gets thrown away.
It's like there's a whole environmental report for a pen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that pen is just one tiny thing in a whole bunch of stuff people buy. One of the things you gave me, it talked about the Kennecott copper mine. It's like the biggest hole dug by humans, and it exists because we need copper for all the stuff we buy.
Oh, that puts things in perspective.
Yeah, it really shows how much we consume. It makes you wonder how we can, make choices that are better for the environment. Luckily, there are things out there that can help us with that.
Like what?
Well, in Canada and the US, there are like labels and laws that are for energy efficiency and stuff that's good for the environment. It helps people make smarter choices.
So it's like a little push in the right direction.
Right. It's about making it easier for people to think about the environment when they buy stuff. But we still have a long way to go.
It's a lot to think about. I'm starting to see my own, shopping habits differently already.
That's the first step to being a more, aware shopper. And speaking of being aware, have you ever thought about how powerful boycotts can be?
You mean like not buying stuff from certain companies to make a statement?
Exactly. The textbook talks about how when people boycott companies, it can actually make a difference for social and environmental change. It gives examples like boycotts against oil and gas companies, cosmetics companies, and even whole countries that, have bad human rights records.
It's amazing that what we choose to buy when a lot of people do it can actually affect these big companies and governments.
It shows how much power consumers have together. But this isn't a new thing. The textbook also talks about, like, boycotts that happened a long time ago, like the Lubicon Lake Cree boycott against a logging company that was working on their land.
I remember learning about that. It shows that people have always been able to change things through what they choose to buy or not buy.
Exactly. It shows that consumers have always had power to, like, influence the market and make change happen. But to really understand how consumerism affects the economy, we need to talk about the big picture stuff like prosperity, income, and spending.
Okay, break that down for me. How do those all fit together?
Well, it all kind of starts with how much money you make. That YouTube video you gave me, it explains like the difference between gross income, which is what you earn before taxes, and net income, which is what you have left after taxes. That net income, that's what you can actually spend.
Right. I guess taxes are a bigger part of this whole consumerism thing than I thought.
Oh yeah, definitely. Taxes can change like what people decide to buy and how much they spend. For example, if the government makes taxes higher on like luxury stuff, people might not want to buy it as much, so the demand goes down.
It's like a money ripple effect. Speaking of ripples, the textbook had that cartoon about budgeting, buying on a budget, I think.
Oh, yeah. That one's perfect for showing how much money you make. It affects what you can buy. The main character, John, he gets his first paycheck and goes straight to the mall all excited to, like, spend it all.
And then I bet he realizes it doesn't go as far as he thought, huh?
Right. He ends up having to really think about what he can actually afford. He learns that, you can't just buy everything you want. You have to work with what you've got.
It's like that part in the cartoon where John goes to that Mall of the World place and it's just like too much, There's just so much to buy. It's kind of like how it feels in real life with like all the ads and stuff.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's easy to get caught up in wanting to buy, and forget about how much money you can actually spend. And
Yeah.
this connects to the whole idea of how much people are making and spending. It affects the whole economy.
So like if a lot of people are having a hard time financially and have to cut back on buying stuff, could that actually hurt the economy?
Yeah, that's exactly why people who study the economy and governments pay attention to, like, how confident people feel about spending money and what they're actually buying. Those are signs of whether the economy is doing well or not. And that brings us to GDP, or gross domestic product.
Ah, GDP. I hear that all the time, but honestly, I don't really know what it means.
That YouTube video actually explains it pretty well. GDP is like the total value of all the stuff a country makes and sells, plus all the services over a certain amount of time, usually a year. It's basically a snapshot of, how much is happening in the economy.
So a higher GDP means a good economy.
Usually, yeah. And all that consumer spending, that's a big part of GDP. When people spend more, businesses make more, they hire more people, and the economy
Kind of
grows.
big old loop. But I'm curious, are there like any downsides to focusing so much on people buying stuff to make the economy grow?
That's a good question. It's something a lot of economists and environmentalists are talking about right now. The thing is, the way our economy works now, with needing to always grow and, buy more stuff, it's putting a lot of stress on the planet.
So while buying stuff can be good for the economy right now, it might not be so good like in the future.
That's the tough part. We have to find a way to, make sure people have what they need, but also protect the environment.
Right. But that feels kind of overwhelming. Like, what can I even do about it?
Well, first you have to know about it. You're already doing great by, learning about consumerism and stuff. It means you're really thinking about like what part you play in all this.
Yeah, but just knowing isn't enough, right? What
Right.
are some things I can actually do to be like a better consumer?
There's actually a lot you can do. It starts with like really paying attention to what you buy.
Yeah.
Before you buy something, just ask yourself a few questions. Do I really need this? Is there a way to get this that's better for the environment? What does this brand like stand for?
So it's about being more thoughtful about what I buy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about focusing on quality, not just quantity. Instead of buying a bunch of cheap stuff that breaks easily, try to buy like fewer things that are well made and will last longer.
Makes sense. I've definitely been guilty of buying stuff just because it was like super cheap and then it breaks or goes out of style right away.
And remember, being a good consumer isn't just about the stuff you buy. It's also about like how much energy and water you use and, things like that.
So like turning off the lights, not taking super long showers, using reusable bags.
Exactly. Little things like that, they can actually make a difference. And when you do need to buy something, try to, support businesses that are doing good things for the environment.
Like buying stuff made from recycled materials or choosing brands that, treat their workers fairly.
Yeah. Those are great examples. And don't be afraid to like ask questions. You can contact companies and ask them about, where they get their materials, what they're doing for the environment, and how they treat their workers.
It's like being a consumer detective.
Haha, kinda. It's about being curious and wanting to know the truth. The more we know as consumers, the more we can, like, change things for the better.
This is all really good advice, but let's be real. It's not always easy to make good choices when there's like temptations everywhere. Plus, stuff that's good for the environment and ethical, it's usually more expensive.
Yeah.
How do I balance wanting to be a good consumer with, having a budget and feeling pressure to like buy certain things?
Yeah, I get that. It's a struggle for a lot of people. There's not really one right answer. It's about figuring out what works for you and your own situation.
So it's not about like judging myself or other people for not always doing the perfect thing.
Right. It's about getting better, not being perfect. And it's about realizing that what we do as individuals, yeah, it's important, but it's only part of the solution. We need to change the whole system to really make things sustainable and fair.
So while I'm trying to, be a better shopper, I also need to be pushing for bigger changes, like in the government and stuff.
Exactly. We need the government to make policies that like encourage people to be more responsible, like taxes on things that hurt the environment, helping out renewable energy and making rules about how we get rid of waste.
It's like we need to make it easier for everyone to make good choices.
Right. It's about understanding that the economy, the environment, and like how people are doing, they're all connected.
This is making me think about that idea of externalities we talked about in the economic stuff.
Oh, yeah. Good connection. What are you thinking?
Well, externalities are like the hidden costs of making and buying stuff that aren't in the price.
Hmm.
Like, how pollution hurts the environment or how eating unhealthy food can make people sick. It seems um, like being a conscious consumer is about trying to make those hidden costs more obvious and like make sure the real cost of what we buy is part of, the whole market thing.
That's a great point. And it shows just how complicated all this is. It's not just about what we buy, it's about like rethinking the whole system.
This whole deep dive is making me rethink everything about shopping.
That's what learning is all about. But remember, knowing something isn't enough. You got to do something with it. What are you going to do with all this new stuff you've learned?
Well, I'm definitely like ready to be more thoughtful about what I buy, But I also see how I need to, push for bigger changes, like not just changing what I do, but changing the whole system.
That's the right idea. It's about realizing that we need both. We need people to change their own habits, and we need to change the way things work in general to make things, last longer and be fairer.
So it's not like one or the other, it's both.
Exactly. We can't just, shop our way out of this mess. We need to push for changes in laws, support groups that are working on this, and speak up to make businesses and governments do better.
It makes me think about those boycotts we talked about. Imagine if we use that same energy, to really change the system.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And it's already happening. There are more and more people buying ethically, investing in good companies, and starting businesses that care about people and the planet.
It's good to hear. This deep dive has really opened my eyes. We started with just a pen and ended up talking about like all the complicated parts of consumerism, how it affects our lives, and how we can change things.
It's been a cool journey, right? It shows how connected we all are. What we choose to buy affects not just us, but other people and the whole planet.
So what's the main thing you want people to take away from this? What's the one piece of advice they should remember when they're shopping?
The next time you're about to buy something, just take a second and think about it. Remember that you're not just buying a thing, you're choosing what kind of world you want. Make it a good choice.
That's a great way to put it. We've put links in the show notes so you can learn more about responsible consumerism and the groups that are, trying to make a difference. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of consumerism.